Dímelo, gente. Marcucci here again, bringing another video. And we have Mayor Stephen Ross of Burlington, North Carolina, a great advocate. He recently introduced a bill for North Carolina to accept Bitcoin, a strategic Bitcoin reserve. So we are bringing him today. So without further ado, how are you doing, Mr. Stephen Ross?
I'm good. I'm good. Now the mayor thing was a number of years back. I'm a state representative now in the North Carolina General Assembly. Um, so I wanted to just start by saying that in my private life outside of the General Assembly for a number of years, I spent most of my career with a couple of large investment firms. I started, back with Merrill Lynch, spent a number of years there, and then Morgan Stanley. Um, and when cryptocurrency or Bitcoin, I guess, would be the first one that came out of the gate. When all of that started, we were well aware of it. In that business, you follow everything going on, and so I learned about it back in its infancy in the very beginning. Uh, and it was not a lot known about it. There was a lot of skepticism, uh, as you would expect for something new like that. But um, over time, um, it started to catch on, and there were a lot of questions, a lot of inquiries about it within our firms, and I eventually started my own firm, and it's up and running in Raleigh, North Carolina now. Tremendous number of inquiries about cryptocurrencies, and so fortunately for me, I had been introduced to it back in the beginning, and in addition to that, my legislative assistant in my office was married to one of the very first uh, crypto innovators, I'll call him, and we used to sit and talk about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency way back in the beginning. Um, Actually, in North Carolina, I introduced the Money Transmitter Act back in 2016, which dealt with cryptocurrency. And I learned very quickly that when you get into something as new and technical as all of this was at the time, it's kind of hard to get it passed. It took all session, many committee meetings, uh, trying to educate my colleagues on exactly what it was and what it wasn't. And um, we finally got that bill passed. And since then, we've had a couple of updates in some of our statutes, to bring North Carolina in line. Um, the original money transmitter bill was uh, like I said, I think about 2016. Our banking commissioner was an individual by the name of Ray Grace. Ray was on the cutting edge of, banking in North Carolina is big. And so we sat down, we had a lot of meetings, a lot of conversations with the banking commissioner's staff. They were great. They understood. In fact, back in the beginning, I used to sit with the banking commissioner and ask him, where do you think all of this is going? I said, you got Warren Buffett on TV saying it's a flash and it'll be gone, and you got others saying it's here to stay. And he was one of those that believed it was here to stay, and so was very instrumental in helping us craft some of that early legislation. Um, since then, blockchain technology, which again is very technical. It's not really, but to some people, I think it's just a different way of thinking. Open source ledgers are not something that uh, the business world or banking world in the beginning were used to. Most of you major banks now have moved, to using blockchain technology. And in addition to that, the crypto's gone from just talking about Bitcoin to other currencies, and um, you're starting to see different types of investment vehicles emerge that give the average American the opportunity to invest. The price of a Bitcoin has always been such that the average person couldn't go out and just buy one, which is what a lot of them wanted to do. They didn't understand the partiality of partial ownership. But a number of investments have come out since then as the investment world and the finance world have begun to embrace the whole thing. That now make it much easier. Anybody can own cryptocurrency, and so we wanted to stay, since we started out with the Money Transmitter Act and recognized that we had something here that was here to stay, and sort of, to me, the wave of the future. Uh, we wanted to stay on the cutting edge of that because North Carolina right now is really priding itself in um, our technology, where we're going with technology. The technology industry has been flocking to North Carolina and Research Triangle Park, for example. And so, we just decided that, we want to be on the cutting edge. We don't want to get left behind. And that's how it has all evolved, at least for me. Our General Assembly sessions are every 2 years with a short session in between. So when you get things like this that are moving at lightning speed, you can't wait around for the next session 2 to 3 years down the road. You get behind that way, and so we're working hard to try to make sure that we are in place to take advantage of what's coming.
I love that. And I have so many questions, so bear with me. How long did the money transfer bill take to approve and pass? Because we've seen that in other states, some move quicker than others. Like in Massachusetts, it's a little bit slower. It takes 2 to 6 years. In Wyoming, it's a little bit faster, right? They get it done in a couple months. So what can we expect from North Carolina with the previous bill in 2016 and now with this bill
Well,
in
we
25?
were able to get the bill passed in 2016 in one session, so we didn't have to wait multiple years. Um, but it was a heavy lift. I'll be the first to admit, because I had to get it through the House first, and then I had to get it through the Senate. Uh, I got it through the House fairly fast. In fact, I think if I remember correctly, it passed unanimous, like 118 to nothing or something in that neighborhood. And it got it to the Senate, and it was a tougher lift, and mainly because I ran into issues with understanding exactly what it was and what it did. Uh, and I learned from that, if I can simplify the process, the presentation, um, it makes it much easier. There's always going to be one or two that are going to look behind the doors and underneath in the cracks and crevices to try to find something, anything. That's the way it works. But I feel good about where we are in North Carolina. I feel good about where we are as far as my discussions with other members. As you know, the House Speaker is one of the other sponsors of this bill, which is going to help me a great deal as far as getting it through the House. A lot of people don't want to vote against a bill that the Speaker's got his name on, because he doesn't really put his name on many bills. It's rare. So he believes strongly in what this process is, what this process does in the future for North Carolina.
Perfect. So let's talk a little bit about the bill. Right now, it's any digital asset that's above $750 million in market cap, correct? The
Well,
bill.
it's first of all, it's in any exchange traded fund,
Okay.
and I think that's the key as far as getting this passed. I think that's the key element in the bill, is to get my colleagues to understand this. You're not going out and buying a Bitcoin or Bitcoins. You're actually buying into a diversified exchange traded fund. And I describe it to some as it's sort of like if you think about a mutual fund, a mix of whatever's in the mutual fund, stocks, bonds, whatever. I said an exchange traded fund is similar. It's different cryptos, and that diversification has some that diversity in the portfolio has some safety in it. In addition to that, as you're aware, there are investment opportunities springing up everywhere. Everybody has a different idea on how, to package cryptocurrencies. Uh, that's been that way since the dawn of time, whether it's stocks or bonds or whatever. And so to protect it further, we said, okay, the stronger ones, the ones that maybe came out first, that have the stronger assets, that have a proven track record, um, that's that's where we'll start. That's not to say, and I fully expect down the road these things to change, but you got to get the initial across the finish line before down the road you start working at modifying. And so by having the large market cap on that fund, it gives another sense of security, to those that are going to have to vote on it. Now that could change as this bill moves through the process. Uh, Still waiting for the treasurer maybe to weigh in on anything. They're evaluating the bill right now. Um, so I think that just this process is new. It's different. It's something that it's going to take some of my colleagues a lot of explaining to try to get them to understand what we're trying to do and why we're doing it. I think the why is just as important as the what, because the future again is changing in the way that everything's digitized now. In fact, I had two major banking institutions that are based in North Carolina. Won't call any names, but they are in the top five. In my office in the last week, and we had discussion. The bill came up, and both of those institutions have been evolving into the blockchain technology. They get it. They're looking at the future. They have people on their on their staffs that are probably smarter than any of us. Um, so they're kind of they're I can't say they've come out just in direct support yet, but I think they will, because they're participating in all of this. They're doing it. They're doing it as we speak, and so they, like I said, they understand it, and so um, I think that will help us also. Look, this is what the financial institutions are doing. You know, in North Carolina, when you look at our assets and the managed assets, or investable assets, I should say, uh, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money, and so we're kind of an institution in ourselves. And when you start looking around, I mean, we're having discussions now on a different note, and pension shortfalls and a lot of different funding mechanisms that we have. Um, and so you have to look at it and say, well, did we not earn enough in our portfolio, or is there some other market force working against us? What exactly what's going on? And so you have to give those that manage those funds, the treasurer and some of the boards that work under the treasurer's office, you have to give them the tools to be able to diversify the holdings enough to be able to capture uh, enough return, or a better return, in order to not come up with a shortfall. Um, as you know, some states are in better shape asset wise than others. We happen to be one of the ones that is fairly good shape, but we still have a deficit. And it comes down to, are we able to have enough flexibility and diversification in those portfolios to be able to get that return? And that's where I think digital assets in the future will play a big role.
No, 100%. And It's funny that you mentioned that. I was watching an interview that you did for, I think it was Queen City News or something like that, that you guys said that you have a huge deficit in these funds. Some funds, can you mention them? I know it's like the general fund, the highway fund, the teachers retirement
Yeah.
system.
So
How do you
when you
treat those? Oh, sorry.
yeah, so when you look at, I think probably the big one that everybody concentrates on is the pension fund. Pension fund is it's a little bit hard to explain how here it works in North Carolina because the pension fund, the treasurer's office manages the funds. The treasurer calls the shots. Uh, and so he is limited to statutory uh, percentages in different asset classes, uh, which I ran a pension bill about 14 years ago. And I realized after I finished that, um, I understood what was going on because I had worked in it for so many years myself, with my firms. But the majority of those sitting in on the floor of the legislature did not really understand the nuts and bolts of a pension plan and how important portfolio management is and what types of assets were important that you had to blend together to get on a safe basis on public funds, to get the maximum return. I mean, I had one colleague that wanted to put it all in bonds. He said, let's just put everything into bonds and then we'll sit back and in 30 years, you're guaranteed to get your money. Well, our pension plan would go so far in the hole fast if we'd done something like that. Fortunately, we were able to get enough votes in that particular bill to get everybody to understand that no, the safer way to get the return we need is the right kind of diversification. It needs to be done by professionals. And in fact, I sat on the floor when I was debating the bill. I said, it doesn't need to be done on this floor. It needs to be done by the professionals in the treasurer's office. They know what they're doing. Um, and it's the same, it's almost deja vu because, again, here we are, we're looking at sort of micromanaging the treasurer and telling him, well, this is what you can do. We know you're trying to diversify, you're trying to get the best rate of return you can for what you're doing. Uh, but you can only do this, and up to this level, that kind of thing. So, um, you know, in North Carolina, the treasurer manages not only the state employees, teachers retirement and state employees pension fund, but he manages for all the local governments in North Carolina. And then other retirement systems, the judicial retirement. These are all separate retirement systems that when you put them all together, it's a mammoth amount of money. Now they're all managed exactly alike, uh, but it's a lot of different funding uh, portions that he has to deal with. State teachers and retirement system, local government system, judicial system, and on and on. So this affects really all of those. They're named or they're spelled out in the bill. I don't think I missed one, but I think I got them all. And really, that's because, as I said, he manages everything, as one. So the judicial system doesn't get a different investment philosophy than the state employees. It's all done the same. So, but you have to in statute you have to go in and specifically name each one of those categories so that they're all covered.
No, yeah. The bill is like 5 pages. I think one and a half is almost all those different funds. So yeah, you definitely cover all of them. The thing that I think might find resistance from the Bitcoiners and the crypto community is why an ETF and not just Bitcoin in itself, right? And I can argue that, the security that you guys have with an ETF, it would be better instead of buying just the Bitcoin. But then if we look at the fees, right? There's different funds or different ETFs have fees, right?
Right.
would that be beneficial to the taxpayers and all of that paying the fees instead of just buying
Well,
the Bitcoin
I,
and
you know,
gold?
I understand exactly what you're saying. I'm not saying I don't disagree with you, but what I have to work with is what can I pass? What can we get past? And if I went out and ran a bill and said we're going to invest just in Bitcoin, by itself, I would never get it passed. Um, at least not now. Times are changing, and I think ultimately that's something that could happen. But right now, it'll be a heavy lift to do it just with the fund, you know. And we have in our different investment plans many examples of different funds. The treasurer is able to negotiate in some cases. A lot of those funds, they negotiate those funds down, with portfolio managers, because everything he can negotiate down it goes to the top line in the pension plan. I mean, it's adds to the number that he's trying to get to in order to keep from another deficit. Uh, but you have to evaluate where you are. You've got to test the water at what is possible in your particular situation. And in our General Assembly, that this is the best way to get started. And then, like I said, long after I'm gone, there will be modifications, and you know, many different things will change. Probably the market cap will change, all of that. So that you have to go with what you can get done.
No, 100% agree. And even you just mentioned it, like once you're gone, I mean, you've been in politics for a long time. I'm assuming you want to retire sometime soon or you want to stay there, whatever you want. The new people come into this new generation, unless those parameters with Bitcoin are set, like, hey, you can't sell this and this, we have to keep this wallet. It is much more harder to do that than to just have an ETF, whatever ETF you want, IBIT, GBTC, or whichever one you guys are talking to. And I see what you're saying, and I completely agree. And yeah, it's just the lack of education that we have now, but that's why we're here. That's why we're doing this video. So I
Yeah,
appreciate.
and I do think that you mentioned younger generations coming in. Um, it's the younger generations that are more receptive, to a lot of the other some of the things that we're talking about. And younger generations, as they come in, they're the ones that will. Um, it's like technology. They're so much more fluent and knowledgeable in technology, So it's the same thing with crypto. There's parts of it that so many people that are in government now. I don't want to say they're getting old, but they don't understand because they've always had the old system of doing things. Uh, it's got to be tangible. Stuff has to be tangible. Um, when you start talking about intangible, they lose it. But the younger generations get it, they're doing it, and ultimately they will transform, the way we look at things, and you know, uh, and maybe sooner than later. I mean, AI is coming on the scene, and things are moving at lightning speed now. Uh, I've been around long enough. I can remember when the internet started, and now look at where we are, and we're just on the cutting edge of AI. So um, I'm one of those that recognizes that I don't know everything. I know what I know about my generation, um, but heck, I have to go to my grandkids sometimes to get my phone unlocked, or something similar, my computer issue. Uh, and I recognize that. I mean, it's the world they live in. It was not the world I lived in. Um, they have they're fortunate. They have an advantage in a lot of this stuff that I don't have. So I'm one of those that says, you know what, I wasn't a part of that. I wasn't a part of that generation, but I am willing to go back and listen and learn. I learned more from my younger colleagues than you could ever imagine. And it's because they grew up in a different world. Cell phones, for example. Yeah, we didn't even know what a cell phone was. Now my daughters had to have one as soon as they went off to school. Actually, they had them in high school. Um, we would have never dreamed of having a phone in high school, you know. Uh, and I remember when one of my daughters was the first one to text. I said, "What are you doing?" She said, "I'm texting my friend." I said, well, "What do you mean you're texting your friend?" I mean that's how far we've come, and it's it would really be neat to be around 100 years from now and see where we end up. Um, but unfortunately, we don't get that opportunity. We have to do the best with where we are, and and try to all work together to get the best solution, and that's what we're trying to do.
Perfect. Yeah, so to wrap things up, one last question. Do your grandkids know about digital assets? And what is the view of this bill for the people of North Carolina and Raleigh, and everything? I mean, you mentioned banking system, and I'm not gonna say, the name of the big bank that's over there, but I can only imagine they need North Carolina. My mom has wanted me to move there. Like, it's so happening, so trendy. I have a lot of friends that actually moved to North Carolina. So what can you say if this bill passes will help the people over there?
Well, to the first part of the question about my grandkids, yes, I have two grandsons. One's in college and one's in high school, and believe it or not, they are involved in this stuff already. Um, and that's, I look at them as that generation coming along that's going to revolutionize, or the acceptance of all of this. And I think it just, what it's going to do for the state depends on where you are in the cycle. Now, we are maybe the biggest banking state now, because we are home base to, at least two of the majors. Um, and the financial industry in North Carolina has embraced all this. And as the banking and financial world transition, um, I think people are beginning to recognize. I mean, everybody talks about it. Even the generations that don't understand it, they talk about it. It's um, and I think that for North Carolina, as we continue to grow in technology and uh, the work that comes out of our universities, both NC State and UNC and Duke in the Research Triangle. Uh, that's three major institutions right within shouting distance in the Research Triangle. And the work that they do in technology, I think this enhances uh, their effort to be the best and on the cutting edge. Um, and I think it just helps the state's position to showcase that we are here. We want to be a leader in technology, and this is part of it. And it's going to be slow in the beginning. I get that, but the rate of growth over the past few years has really surprised me. Uh, so that's kind of where we are in a nutshell. Where we are.
Yeah. And sorry, I was muted. I'm sorry about that. I was just showing the people here's 21 shares. The growth is just immense compared to the S&P. I mean,
Yeah, exactly. They,
this year the S&P is up a little bit. It's up 3% compared
yeah,
to this. But
you,
the
you're
next
you're
year.
stealing my thunder from my debate.
Sorry
You
about
know,
that. You could
so
show them this video.
so and I didn't even mention correlation. That's a hard thing for some people. If you're not a portfolio manager, correlation is something a lot of people don't get either. It's, you have certain segments or certain investments that are not correlated to the S&P. Everybody gauges everything by the S&P. And over the years, I have seen times when the S&P was down, and some other asset class was way up.
Mhm.
Um, and you find that even in say the Dow Jones average, you may have transportation that just takes off up 30% one year, and the rest of the Dow is down in the tank. I mean, that's where it works. And so if you can have a correlate, if you can in your portfolio management correlate or not correlate strictly with the S&P in order to get a return, because we could easily have a couple of years come up where the S&P is down. But if you've got another asset class in your portfolio that's up during that period of time, as the chart you just showed, you're going to lessen the blow to your bottom line. And that's the key to diversification. That's the key to being able to get that portfolio mix that you need, not only to stay safe, but to stay ahead of inflation and all the other market uh, issues that will work against the portfolio. So very important.
Thank you so much for this interview, Mr. Ross. I really do appreciate it. And I think the people in North Carolina are going to appreciate you a lot if this bill actually passes. The pension funds, like general funds, everyone is going to highly, highly appreciate you. So thank you everything you do for the people in North Carolina and everyone here in the United States. And this video, hopefully you guys learned a lot from it. Really interesting. And someone with a financial background and banking background like you do is truly, truly always necessary in the government. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank
Perfect.
you.